Hey there riders, Motojourno Chris here, and I wanted to have a chat about the comfort seat for Yamaha's MT-07 because at over $400 here in Australia, the comfort seat is quite an investment, and at the end of the day you kind of want to know whether that's going to be worthwhile in the long run. And to me, having started off riding the bike with the comfort seat fitted and then switching back to the stock seat and doing some kind of back-to-back testing where I went and did a long ride on one day, and essentially just what I did is, every 30 to 45 minutes I'd switch the two seats around and have a bit of a feel of, how they felt. Not only, I started on the comfort seat, which obviously that's an advantage because everything tends to feel reasonably comfortable for that first period. I started on the comfort seat. After about half an hour, I switched to the standard seat, and then I switched back and forth numerous times to just make sure that I was getting a good feel between the two seats. Now, the standard seat, the thing you'll notice compared to the comfort seat, more contoured, the lines are a little bit sharper. The padding on it is, quite a high density foam, and I have to say, while I think it does fit the bike just a little bit better, it's a little bit rigid around these areas here, so it kind of holds onto the contours of the bike a little bit better in that regard. At the end of the day, the comfort seat did make an enormous difference, and I guess the way I'll explain it is, out on the open road, particularly if you're just sitting on the bike, after say an hour, that comfort seat is significantly more comfortable than the stock seat. The stock seat, I started to really feel the density of that foam. It started to feel a little bit plank-like, a little bit too harsh for me. However, on the comfort seat, it's got a nice kind of extra layer of a softer foam, and then it's got kind of, I think, the harder foam underneath it, which just gives it, like a softer feel. And particularly when you're riding for long distances, that does make a difference for me at least. I'm 70 kilos, I'm about 180 centimeters. I think I fit the bike pretty perfectly, and the comfort seat was just an enormous upgrade once you got moving and once you were spending more time in the saddle. Now, there's a couple of things to think about. If you're riding through the twisties and doing short rides and you're off the bike quite a little bit, you probably won't notice the difference, particularly for shorter rides, because while I didn't find there was much of a difference as far as moving around on the seat, obviously this one having kind of the sharper edges, not that you'll feel them as sharper, but just the design of the seat is a lot sharper because it doesn't have that extra padding. You'll probably find this does the job through the twisties. And as I said, particularly if you're getting off and like really moving around on the bike, because that affects kind of how much you're sitting on the seat. And I find even quite uncomfortable seats, if you're moving around on the bike a lot, you just don't notice it. However, where the comfort seat really comes into its own is, I would say, for the longer rides. So if you're more interested in touring and you want to spend, 2.5 to maybe even up to 3 hours in the saddle at a time before taking a break or, getting where you're going, this is going to be the seat I would choose. I didn't particularly notice that, even though it's a little bit more padded and, it's definitely a little bit less angular on kind of the, as you can see here on the stitching, that's kind of where the contours of the seat are. I didn't find that there was any discomfort as far as the edges of the seat or anything like that. It is a narrow seat towards the front. However, the comfort overall, particularly as I'd been riding longer, was much, much better. I'd switch between the standard seat and I'd be going, this is uncomfortable. I'd switch to the comfort seat and I'd go, wow, that's a significant improvement. And I think where that's also going to come into play, apart from the longer rides, is if you're commuting a lot, as a commuter, you're just sitting on the bike a lot of the time. And that's where kind of that harder foam really comes into it. So obviously, if you've got, like a 15-minute commute, I don't think there's going to be that much of a difference between the stock seat and the comfort seat. However, if you're spending, say, 40 minutes or an hour commuting every day, and particularly if some of that time you're getting caught in traffic or you're just having to, be plonked down on that seat, again, the comfort seat's really going to come into its own. Now, at over $400 for the comfort seat, it's a hefty investment. There's a lot of stuff you could do for $400, but if you're using the MT-07 as a daily ride, it just makes a lot of sense to me. I've got to say, I've got the comfort seat on my Daytona and it makes an enormous difference. And, often I've talked to people who've said, oh, the seat on that bike's pretty uncomfortable. And I just say, pick up a comfort seat, because not all comfort seats are created equal. Some do a much better job than others. In this case, I would definitely say I can see a significant improvement with the Yamaha genuine comfort seat for the MT-07. And like I said, I think it's gonna, longer trips, longer commutes, you're really going to appreciate having that on the bike. And I think it's a lot easier to justify that price because it's not cheap. Seats don't tend to be that cheap either. I guess you could have some options for chucking something over the seat, but like as you can see, the standard seat is a really thin at the front, quite contoured seat, and it's a lot harder to just throw something over the top of this kind of seat. You know, on touring bikes, you can chuck a sheepskin over or something like that, and that'll certainly help. You probably don't want to do it on a sportier machine like this. The other thing to keep in mind, the seat itself, you will need an Allen key or a hex key to remove the standard seat, but it's a really simple job. You use the key to pop off the pillion seat on the back, and then you just undo the 2 bolts here and you're good to go. You can switch that seat out in 30 seconds. Very, very easy job. So would I recommend the comfort seat? I would definitely say yes. You've got to judge whether the investment is worth it, but at the end of the day, I would definitely say so. You might be able to sell your stock seat if you don't mind getting rid of it for a little bit of money to help recoup your costs in case there's someone with a damaged seat out there. But at the end of the day, it makes a lot of sense to me. The seat isn't anywhere, the standard seat isn't anywhere near as hard as on the Ninja 400, but I still think that's a great improvement on the MT-07 to pick up that genuine comfort seat. Anyway, if you've got any particular questions about the comfort seat, just let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them as always. Don't forget to sub and hit that notification bell. It really helps the channel. Stay safe out there, and thanks for watching.